Is yours on?
Mine? Oh.
Right? There you go.
And let me actually point it that way.
All right.
Is mine? Is actually, I don't know if testing? Yeah.
Well, friends, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Good to see you. See you. Oh, I did it again. See you. See you. Welcome. It's nice to have you here with us. We're going to start our service. Hopefully you entered into our sanctuary. You picked up one of our prayer books. It says Mishkan Tefillah on it. And we have some that are a little bit lighter, some that are large print. If you have one of those versions, it will say Shabbat on the spine. If you have a Shabbat on the spine, you're going to see two different page numbers. We're following the page number in blue brackets. And I invite you to look at page 128 for us to begin. Page 128.
Hine matov umanayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov umanayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov umanayim shevet achim gam yachad. Shevet achim gam yachad. How good it is.
How good it is.
How sweet it is.
How sweet it is
to be together on this day. Let's try this again. How good it is, and then how good it is. How good it is.
How good it is.
How sweet it is.
How sweet it is
to be together on this day. How good it is.
How good it is.
How sweet it is.
How sweet it is
to be together on this day. Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem. Salam Aleikum. Shalom Aleichem. Salam Aleikum. Shalom Aleichem. Salam Aleikum. Shalom Aleichem. Salam Aleikum. Hine matov umanayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov umanayim shevet achim gam yachad.
Yafeh. So, before we continue, I'm going to ask you to turn to a neighbor, someone you do not know. You don't have to shake hands if you're not ready for that. If that's too much for you, you can just share your name, say something about yourselves, and wish a Shabbat Shalom. You can turn in front of you, behind you. Wonderful. So now we invite you to turn back into the prayer book, page 120. We are going to bring more light, a deeper light, God's light into this space, into this community. And we're going to ask Rena and Todd and Ari and Zev if you folks will come and join us. We're on page 120 to light our Shabbat lights. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Fire's the best part.
Exactly.
No.
Such pretty cameras.
Good. Right on the mirror. There you go.
1, 2, 3.
Baruch
Atah Adonai
Eloheinu melech haolam
Asher Kishanu B'mitzvotav V'tzivanu L'Hadli Ner Shel Shabbat.
Amen. Thanks, friends. Zev, you're going to come back. Yes, come on this side with us. Friends, we're going to turn the page 123. Our friend here is going to lead us in a kiddush. That you are.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon chinchelanu zikaron ema'aseh v'reishi. Ki yom techila lemikra'e kodesh zecher litzia Mitzrayim. Ki vanu v'chata v'tanu kidashtach mikol ha'amim v'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh ha-shabbat.
Amen. L'chaim. Awesome. You can go back to your seat. Friends, we turn again, page 138 and 139, L'chadodi, the prayer of our mystics. We continue with the first 5 stanzas. After the 5th one, we jump to the very last one. When we reach the last one, our custom here is to rise, face the open doors in the back of our sanctuary, and symbolically we welcome the Sabbath bride into our midst.
Shabbat nekabel, yalla la 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 lechadodi, yalla la 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 likrat kala, yalla la 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 panei Shabbat.
Seated. 142. We welcome the angels into our lives this Shabbat, helping us to grow and stretch to be our better selves. May these angels of peace accompany all of us on our journeys on this Shabbat, this weekend, and in our lives, and give us strength.
Shalom Aleichem,
Malachei Hasharet,
Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Boachem Leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei
Turn forward to 146. Again, we ask you to rise if you are able. Join with me on 149. You have additional words in our handouts. If you look all the way to the right, you will see Roll into Dark, an interpretation of this prayer for Ma'ariv Aravim, our prayer for the evening. Join along with. Day turns to night. 152.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Leolam Va'ed. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
154.
ואהבת
You may be seated.
את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם
בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ושוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם אלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
On 157, let's read together. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there's a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. 158.
Who is like you, Adonai? Who is like you, Adonai? Ya la la ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai mi kamocha nehedar b'kodesh nora tehilot osei v'emet nora tehilot osei v'emet. Who is like you, Adonai? Who is like you, Adonai? Ya la la ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la la ya la la ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
Amen. We turn again. We're going to be on both sides of the page spread. You'll see the top of 161 is where we begin. We'll go to 160. We'll go back to 161. You'll figure it out. I promise. Follow along.
Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's source. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's source. Ashkivenu, Adonai Eloheinu. Ashkivenu, Leshalom. Ve'ha'amidenu, Shomrenu lechayim. Ufros aleinu, Zukat Shlomecha, Ashkivenu, Adonai Eloheinu, Ashkivenu, Leshalom. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms.
164. Again, we rise as we are able.
Yalalai, lai, 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 Adonai. Yalalai, lai, lai, sipatai tivta. Yalalai, lai, lai, ufiagi. Ufiagi, tehiratecha. Yalalai, lai, 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 Adonai. Yalalai, lai, lai, sipatai tivta. Yalalai, lai, lai, ufiagi. Ufiagi, tehiratecha. Yalalai, lai, 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 Adonai. Yalalai, lai, lai, sipatai tivta. Yalalai, lai, lai, ufiagi. Ufiagi, tehiratecha. Yalalai, lai, 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 Adonai. Yalalai, lai, lai, sipatai tivta. Yalalai, lai, lai, ufiagi. Ufiagi, tehiratecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avotenu ve'imotenu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרא שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, מוריד הטל. מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יעללוך הסלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
Let's be seated. We can read together in 173. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat. A prayer for peace, 178.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim leolam. Ki ata hu melech adon, lechol hashalom. Ki ata Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim leolam. V'tov be'einecha levarech et amcha Yisrael bechol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שלום רב על ישראל עמך, תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך, תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם.
This is our time for our own personal prayer, our own silent, not so silent prayer. You can look into the Siddur on page 179 through 181. Choose any reading to reflect upon, or just take some time for yourselves, your own reflections and thoughts and prayers.
עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו Israel,
Shalom bimromav.
Shalom Aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, Amen.
It's after that prayer for peace where we move to a prayer for healing. Healing of body, healing of soul. A true healing can't have one without the other. So we invite you to turn to page 371. In the middle of the page is our prayer for healing and wholeness. And also inside of this handout of ours, there's lots of names from our community, folks who've asked for prayer, folks who've been asked for a little strength and love from us. So maybe we know them, maybe we don't know any of them, but we're going to take all of these folks along with us into this prayer. If you have a name to share that you would like to lift up and say out loud, even if they're all kind of jumbled together, let's share those names. Etty Young. Breath 371.
Nishaberach avotenu mekor habracha laimotenu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Nishaberach imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing, refuah shelema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
So this past week was Yom Ha'atzmaut, Israel's Independence Day. And the other day, there was a nice celebration at our Jewish Community Center. Different parts of our community came together, and all of the congregations had booths and such. And we were wondering, what should we do? How do we contribute to this celebration? But at the same time, right now in Israel, it's really a turbulent time. There's so many different kinds of challenges. And I live my life always, and still do, as someone who identifies as a Zionist. And what I mean by that is someone who believes in the Jewish community that Zionism can be the national renewal movement of the Jewish people, and having a focal point of all of that in the land of Israel. But sometimes Israel is a really challenging place. And right now there are all of these issues about what some call judicial reform, but I don't call it an effort for judicial reform. There is a lot of antagonism and hatred that is circling around within a small group of people with power, and all of these other folks, hundreds of thousands, are in streets around Israel protesting, and I'm inspired by it. So there's a part of me that wants to lift up this Israel and has a hard time with an idea of a party, because Israel is really fracturing in so many ways. So our way to contribute to this celebration, we took a big copy, well, not really, we took an image and made a big copy of Israel's Declaration of Independence. We put a big English translation next to it. We put it on a big piece of vinyl poster something. I don't know what it is, actually. And we asked people, just like the signers of the Declaration in May of 1948, we asked the people at the JCC to sign their names and rededicate themselves to a Jewish democratic state. And I loved that we did that. And I loved that we showed them the Declaration of Independence. Because there's something in the Declaration that is so powerful for me. There's one little piece of it, and I share it from time to time, and I want to share it again with you after the beginning, which is kind of a history of people and Jews around the world, and vulnerability and anti-Semitism and Jewish hatreds and Holocaust. There was an effort to be pioneers and build a Jewish nation, and then eventually to make this state, because, by the way, at this moment, the British were leaving Palestine. They were on their way out. They needed to figure out who's going to lead this community, this people. And over a few decades, just a few, they created this whole infrastructure. And they knew that this was going to be a moment of a declaration of a new country. They had no idea what it was going to be called until David Ben-Gurion actually said this was going to be a state of Israel. It must have really been a tense time, because they knew that there was going to be attacks from Arab armies. They knew the British was leaving and weren't going to help. It couldn't really depend on other countries at the time. What was David Ben-Gurion, who becomes Israel's first prime minister, what was he going to do? They had no idea. It could have been called Herzlland as far as they knew. But he calls the state of Israel. And he says, in this state of Israel, it will be open for Jewish immigration and for the ingathering of the exiles. It will foster the development of the country for the benefit of all of its inhabitants. It will be based on freedom, justice, and peace, as envisaged by the prophets of Israel. It will ensure complete equality of social and political rights to all its inhabitants, irrespective of religion, race, or sex. It will guarantee freedom of religion, conscience, language, education, and culture. It will safeguard the holy places of all religions, and it will be faithful to the principles of the Charter of the United Nations. I really find that to be a prophetic voice. We didn't have that kind of a statement in this country in 1948. Not anywhere close. Even before then, women were voting in Zionist elections. We struggled with some of those things, even in this country and in many countries. So what does this say to me? The Declaration of Independence isn't Israel's constitution. It's a vision statement. And the vision hasn't made it yet. I think we need to still work towards this vision, because there are some people that really don't want some of those elements that were imagined, envisioned, the aspirations of a state of Israel. It hasn't made it. But I grew up with this love for Israel. And the truth is, I still have it, even when I'm hurt or disappointed. I grew up with those lullabies of Israeli peace songs. I remember my mother singing, Ani mavtiach lach, yalda sheli ktana. I promise you, my little girl, that this will be the last of all of the wars. It was a song after the 73 war, the Yom Kippur War. And that was one of my lullabies. I didn't understand, like, I promise you, my little girl, but that's okay. But for me, Israel, embedded in Israel, was a hope for peace, a hope for coexistence, a hope where people could live together and build something unimaginable because it was so great. That's what my hope was, even as a young child in the 70s. But it wasn't the last war. But I also know that a lot of folks, when they think of Israel, they only think of war. They think of conflict. There's a lot of us who weren't around in a world where there wasn't a state of Israel. And when there was no state of Israel, Jews were really in jeopardy and had no place to go. And something that I've shared before, I'm going to say it again, it's really difficult when you have two indigenous peoples looking at the same piece of land and trying to figure out how do we confront it. But for tonight, I think about the promise of that song. I think about the promise of the Declaration of Independence. I think the promise of Yitzhak Rabin, who was this soldier and was supposed to be a really difficult, challenging, harsh kind of warrior. And when he gets an award, an honorary doctorate from the Hebrew University, he confesses how he didn't want to be a warrior, that none of them did. And we shouldn't celebrate the victory because people died and were hurt and were wounded. It's to celebrate the spirit of people who are fighting for something, but not just that we won and beat somebody else. There was too much spilled blood for that. I appreciate that kind of leadership. I'll share one other thing. One of my trips taking synagogue groups to Israel, we had something extraordinary happen. There are these tunnels below the Western Wall, right, below the Kotel. I hate tunnels. I'm a little claustrophobic. When I say a little, I mean I'm really claustrophobic. But I wanted to be a good rabbi and take care of my congregants, so I go along. I had no meds, but that's okay. And I go into this tunnel, and as we were going through all of these really tight little small tunnels, and I'm not super petite, we get to one spot, and it's kind of railed off, and it says, "Do not enter," and there's a security guard there smoking under the ground in these tunnels. But that's okay. And he's making sure that nobody goes into this restricted area. And our guide, Tzvi, good guy, our guide, who is originally from Wantagh, Long Island, starts having this argument with the security guard because that's what Israelis do. And eventually, the security guard walks away. He made sure before he left that we're not allowed to go into this restricted area. And then he leaves. So what does my guide do? He says, "Come with me." So we go into this area, and we're all kind of around this hole in the ground that goes into the middle of the planet. And he dangles himself over the ledge, holds onto a piece of the scaffolding. You hear him scratching some of the rock, and he comes out, and his hand is filled with soot. This is below the Western Wall. That's soot from the destruction of the first temple of Jerusalem. And he shows it to us from a fire. It didn't belong there. They knew already that that was soot. And we talked about the resiliency of the Jewish people then, and I would say now, about how to make life meaningful, how to make it precious. So for a couple of thousand years ago, has soot on his hand from a temple that was destroyed, and Jews were exiled from Jerusalem. And I'm just amazed that we are all looking at his hand his dirty black hand. And we kind of come from that soot. We made it all the way to the United States, to Boulder. I still don't really know how that happened. And we're here to tell the story. So Israel is important to me, not just because of refuge. That was important to my mom. What's important to me is that's the cradle of our people's story. And that is the place that is the embodiment of hope. It is a place where peace needs to be lived out. And it hasn't made it. And it breaks my heart. And we have to be part of solutions. But I'm going to still celebrate this anniversary of the beginning of a state of Israel, because even with difficult things happening, the way we might feel difficult things are happening in our country here, I'm a part of its story, and I'm a part of its healing, and a part of its work. And if you want to be a part of that too, let us know, and we'll be glad to share how. But I'm grateful for Israel's 75th anniversary. For me, it's been an inspiration. And the last part that I'm going to share with you as we turn to page 570, there is this tradition of counting the Omer. It's counting the days leaving Passover, moving to Shavuot. Passover marks the Exodus from Egypt and liberation. Shavuot, which is in just a few weeks, is going to be marking the giving of the Torah. Well, the rabbis of old said that every day we get ready and prepare ourselves for actually receiving the Torah. You can't just show up. And every day and every week has a relationship to this attribute of God that comes from the mystics of old. And today, there are two attributes on this calendar. One is Gevurah, and one is Netzach. Gevurah, some people could look at as power, but it can also be about discipline. Netzach could be about victory, but I also think it's something about building eternity. Gevurah and Netzach together, I think, is a good message for this conversation around Israel, because I want a strong and safe Israel. I do. I also want a Palestinian state to be established side by side. There's lots of us who believe in the power of a two-state solution. But I also think that when there is that fight, when there is the hardship of whether it's security or wrestling with our angers, we can't celebrate the victories when somebody else is hurting. We have to pull back a little bit and ground it in something more. So I'm not going to celebrate what the Palestinians have lost. I'm going to celebrate what Israel can and should be, and going to also try and do my part as best as I can to help contribute to what will eventually be a home for two indigenous peoples and two states side by side. I hope to see it in my lifetime. God, I do. I'm not always so sure, but nobody's going to rob me of hope. So Gevurah is the discipline, Netzach is the victory. I'm not going to celebrate a win on Israel Independence Day. I'm going to celebrate the fact that there's such amazing potential of what an Israel could be. So we're going to say a blessing for the counting of the Omer. After our service, you can see that big piece of vinyl with the Declaration of Independence. You can read the Hebrew, you can read the English, and if you feel like you want to be a part of it, you can sign your name too, just like those original signers. You can write your message of hope, hope for peace.
We're on page 570. הנני מוכן ומזומן לקיים מצוות תעשה. הנני מוכן ומזומן לקיים מצוות תעשה של ספירת העומר, של ספירת העומר, של ספירת העומר, של ספירת העומר. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר קידשנו במצוותיו וציוונו על ספירת העומר, על ספירת העומר, על ספירת העומר, על ספירת העומר. יאי די די יאי די
היום 23 יום שהם 3 שבועות 2 ימים לעומר. Today is the 23rd day, making 3 weeks and 2 days of the counting of the Omer. 586 at the bottom of the page. We ask you to rise as you are able. 586, the bottom paragraph.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסר ארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובה מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום והשבות אל לבביך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד.
591.
ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
Let's be seated. Zichronam levracha, may their memories be for a blessing. If you are observing a yahrzeit is the anniversary of one's death, or if you are in the midst of a period of mourning, we invite you, if you choose, to rise for a moment, share the name of the one whom you are remembering, and then we'll continue with additional names from our community. Dara? We also remember in the period of Shloshim, those first 30 days, Lynn Ruttenberg Mandel, the sister of Nancy Bailey. We remember Bill Barron, the father of Sandra Green, and Eleanor Ray Barron, the mother of Sandra Green. Sandra is going to be sitting Shiva tomorrow night and Sunday night, losing both of her parents in this past month. So we encourage our folks in our community. The email has been sent out with information, and we continue to send strength her way. Those yahrzeits for this week that has passed, we continue to remember Linda Leisner, Alice Weiss, Anita Mandelbaum, Ann Rosenthal, Annette Starr, Bernard Sloat, Dinah Grissel, Dora Goldstein, William Bernstein, Emmanuel Zoller, Eugene Schwartz, Florence Cohen, Fred Koslov, Gilbert Schiff, Harry Bell, Helen Lucille Henderson, Honey Silverman, Joan Messinger, Joseph Glassman, Larry Siegel, Leon Feldman, Lou Brown, Louis Kramer, Maurice Feldman, Miles Eaton, Nancy Prince, Richard Gilbert, Rebecca Goldsmith, Rose Cedar, Seymour Lee, Sidney Locker, Susan Rosenberg, Ted Bloom, Tom Davith, and Zoe Steele. Kaddish is on 598. We stand together as we are able. When we stand for Kaddish, and we stand shoulder to shoulder in that symbolic way, we hold up our friends who need to say a Kaddish, and we surround them with strength. 598. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah v'alma divrach chirutei v'amlich malchutei v'chayechon v'yamechon v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael v'agala v'zman kariv v'meru amen. Yehi shmei rabba mivarach le'olam olamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei d'kodesha b'richu. Le'ala min kol birachata v'shirata tush birachata v'nechamata da'amiran be'alma v'meru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya. V'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'meru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'meru amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn, all who hurt, here and everywhere. Let's say amen. You can be seated, but not Zev. Where are you?
Not Zev.
Not Zev. You have to come here. How you doing?
Good?
Good. You ready?
Yeah?
You want to do it all now?
No?
Okay. So we want to wish you a Mazal Tov. We want to wish you well. We want to wish you and your family joy, strength, happiness. We know that you're going to be a wonderful leader and teacher to all of us tomorrow morning in this moment of becoming and celebrating, taking ownership of our own Judaism. And I think for me, that was a big part of what I wanted to share. I think for me, Israel really helped me take ownership over my sense of who I am as a Jew and what my connections are. And I hope for you that you figure out your own relationship with Israel, but also that you grow into owning your Jewish part. Whatever that might mean, how do you get to live it out loud? How do you get to celebrate it and find it meaningful and can be a source of inspiration and a source of comfort for you? So we have a yad for you, and we hope that you not only will use it well tomorrow, but in many days to come. So, Mazal Tov. All right. Okay, you can go.
Okay, so we're going to close with Shir LaShalom. We did it a few weeks ago, so maybe some of you were here and you remember it. It is a song for peace. Shir LaShalom literally means song for peace. And it was sung by the Lahakot HaNachal, one of the troops of the Israeli army in the 60s. Oh no, I forgot the year. And page 658, Prayer for Peace. Really beautiful, beautiful words. Sure, I think no. I think no. Yeah. Oh no, I think yes. It's okay. Sorry, Rabbi. Tnu l'Hashemesh la'alot, laboker le'ha'ir, hazaka shebatfilot, otanu lo tachzir. Mi asher kavanero, uva'afar mitmar.
Shabbat Shalom to you.
Shabbat
Wish your
shalom.
neighbors a Shabbat Shalom. Come out to the social hall. We'll make a motzi together before we go on our ways. And also, just to remind the guests for the Tilzer family dinner, you're going to be heading to the south building, which you can either go out these doors and across our parking lot to the other side, or if you have to get a jacket or something, you can go back to the lobby and go around, but it's still across the parking lot to the other side by the swing set. Go to the front of that building. Shabbat Shalom, friends.